Okay, so hello everyone, we're back, and what we're going to do now is we're going to set up a template for the PowerShell App Deployment Toolkit, the PDT kit. And if you remember from the last video, we downloaded the 3.8 version, 3.8.0 version of PDT, and we created a folder on the desktop, and we did some manipulation with the files here, and we got down to these three directories and these three actual files plus the word, the admin guide, right? So what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to actually set up a template, and that's done by using the deploy application.ps1. Now, this PS1 is the front end to the actual application, right? So if you look in here, in the app deploy toolkit folder, you'll see multiple XMLs, PS1s. You'll see an icon. These all have functionality. These all have a purpose, but that's that's going to be in later videos as I get into and delve into what this thing does, right? So what we want to do now, though, is we want to do a template, right? So if you remember from the last video, I said that once you downloaded this, you were going to be using the same directory, the same file, the same PDT over and over again. Simply by copying it out and then renaming it to whatever application you're going to be creating a deployment for, right? So let's actually go in and see how we template this, right? So we're going, like I said, we're going to open up the deploy-application.ps1. We're going to use PowerShell ISE. I have ISE in my taskbar. The taskbar, I'm going to actually close the window at this point. I had it open earlier. So I have that here, and you have to open up in an admin as an admin, right? So I already have that set up, so it'll automatically do that for me. You can do that on your own time. So I'm going to open up ISE, and basically what I want to do in ISE is I want to get to that folder and then get to that PS1, the deploy-application.exe, right? Or .ps1, excuse me. So actually already there, desktop, PDT 3.8.0, and I'm going to open it up. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to build a synopsis here, right? So the synopsis is basically just what the application is going to do, right? So when we build an application, when we create the application install, what is it doing? What does this PowerShell do, right? What is it doing? Right? So we're going to say, okay, on install, right? And then I'm going to go here and say on uninstall. Now I'm going to be, you can set this up any way you'd like, right? There's no rhyme or reason for it because it's for you. But just make sure that you consider that other folks are going to be using this. So you might want to put something up here like this package does the following, right? Something like that, right? And then on install, and then you could just number stuff here, right? So you would put like 1, and then I always put a 1 underneath this, right? Because that's where you're going to start with. And first thing is done, right? So you're going to do you just do a save here, right? So now as you get down in here and you start looking, you're going to see the parameters and validation sets and all these different things. These commandlets and these functions are all called from this front end. This is the front end PS1, right? So you can find all of these, everything that's in this front end, you literally can find inside the app deploy toolkit, right? So if you go in here, you can go in here and you can, if you open one of these PS1s, depending on what you're actually looking for, the main is where most of these things reside. And this thing is huge. I mean, this thing's half a meg, right? So, and it's all script. So it's gigantic. Don't want to go in there tampering around too much. Stay out of there for now. If you want to get in as you get better with the tool, you could go in and manipulate, sizes of things and what they say on default, and how different commands are handled. But for right now, you don't really need to touch any of that. So let's continue on and figure out what else can we template, right? So what we're trying to do here is that when you do a copy from from the desktop file here to another, when you actually do the copy here and then rename it, you want your stuff to be, you want that PS1, the deploy-application.ps1 to be as best filled out as you can, so you're not doing so much work that's repetitive, right? So I don't know what package is going to be I'm going to work on next, so I can't do much more than what I've done here for the synopsis, right? But let's take a look at some of the other stuff, right? So you have, if you go down, this is if you go down, if you're looking at these parameters here, this is what tells the application or the PDT what to do, right? So the validation set, the parameter, mandatory, false. What you want to pay specific attention to are the strings here, right? So the strings are what controls what the PowerShell does, right? What the PDT does, right? So for example, the interactive, silent, non-interactive, okay, these are listed as options, right? So the validate set is an identifier for the deploy mode. So right now, this is set to interactive. That means that as you do your package, if you run the package, the PowerShell deployment toolkit will do specific things based on the commands that we looked at very briefly in the first video, right, on the download, right? So we'll get into that later on. But just so you know, typically I leave this set up to interactive. I used to leave it silent, but as our corporation has grown, we're starting to use SCCM more in Software Center. So folks need to be able to interact with the application as you build it and as they install it. And like I said, we'll get further onto that in other videos. Okay, so that's the primary one you want to deal with here. The other stuff, again, like I said, there's other things you can do, but for now, let's just concentrate on the things that we can understand, and you guys will get a better idea as we move forward. So the app vendor, again, you don't know who the application is going to be for. So here, this is where you would put in, say, Microsoft, for example, right? Yes, I love Microsoft. That's my deal, right? So, but I'm not going to add that, right, for now. But okay, then you have the app name. What's the app? Okay, whatever it is, Visio, right? And there's reasons why you would fill this stuff out as you build the application. Then the app version, and then you have the app architecture. So if you wanted to put Windows 10, Windows XP, whatever, Windows Millennium Edition, you don't want to do that. But so, and then you have your app language. It's English. The app revision. So it's 0.1. The app revision is for you. How many times have you done this specific app? And then you have the script version, right? So it's 1.0, right? So it's set to 1.0. So this would be, you could make this 1.1, for example. I typically don't change the 0. And then set your date. Set your date. So set your date to nothing. So it's still 2019. I'm going to leave that there. And then put your name in here. You're the one that's going to be doing this scripting all the time. So I'm going to put my name in there. And then I'm going to go down, and so now we're finished with this. We're finished with the templating of the declaration. So let's do a quick save. And now we're going to go down and we're going to look at the different parts of this, and we're going to template it, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about your variables and your install. These things will become quite clear to you of what they're doing. For example, you're setting your policy to install unrestricted, things like that, right? Testing pass, different things that, like as I said, as you become better acquainted with this, you'll be able to figure out what these things are doing based on the other PS1. That's so when you pull this, when you pull the PDT kit down, it tries to make things really, really easy for you. And like I said, it sets up other synopsis and other descriptors so that it tells you where to put things. We don't really need to do that, right? So what I typically do is I remove all this stuff. There's no reason for it, right? And I get it down to the strings, right? Remember I told you pay close attention to the strings. So you have one string here. This is your install phase, right? There's some preset commands in here. They've been commented out. We want to get rid of them. And we want to get rid of this. So we want to get down to that second string, which is your installation string. And then we want to comment these are useless to us. And then we're going to do this. And be careful not to delete any of the curly brackets or anything like that that are imperative to the actual script to run, right? So you can see what we've done here. This is the install portion of the PDT, right? So there's two portions to this. There's the install and the uninstall. We'll go into that later. Again, we're just templating right now, right? We just want to make this the template. So now here's your uninstall. This is the uninstall portion of it. So we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to remove this. You don't have to do this. You could leave that stuff there if you'd like. I personally did it because it's confusing to me with all the perform this and do that. I know what it does, right? So you guys, if you want to leave it there, if you're not familiar with the application, with the toolkit, if you're new to it, you know, leave it there if it helps you. Take some of the you can leave the comments in there and the functions that are commented out just so that it gives you an idea of what would go there, for example. But you don't really need to have that stuff, and I'll explain that later in another video as we move forward. Because you're going to use the Word document, the admin document, to look up different functions and things that you might need as you create your package. Okay, so then now at the end, right? So I leave the end body, the end script body down there. It's very important. That curly bracket there, the else if statements, these curly brackets, do not mess with them, right? Do not mess with them, right? So typically what I'll do is I'll put a space, and then I'll put a space here, right? And I just so for me to know, so there's just another space here. So then I'll save it. And here's my template. Pretty clean, pretty simple, right? So what did we do, right? Let's review it, right? So we created an overall synopsis of what the toolkit is going to do as you build the package, right? On install, it does this. On uninstall, it does that, right? We looked at whether or not we were going to leave it silent, interactive, or non-interactive. We're going to leave it interactive. That's basically, like I said, if you're working with SCCM, companies typically use Software Center, and you need your users to interact. Just because some applications require that things get shut down, if you're doing an Office update or something like that, you need to shut down Word, right? So you can't just shut that down, right? You got to tell the user you're doing it, right? So that's why it's interactive, and you can add all that stuff in here, and we'll go into that later. As we move forward, the variables for the variable declaration. We talked about the app vendor and all that, so we put our name in there, and we left a blank date. And then we moved down, and we, like I said, skipped through the commands there. What we really need, you're not going to be putting any script or anything into this area, right? But this is part of the PDT. This, like I said, it's a front end to it, right? It tells the other PS1s what to do, and then they tell this what to do. So the only thing, this is where all of your script is going to go. It's going to go between here, and here, and here, and between here, here, and here. That's where all of your script is going to go. There's no need. I have never had a reason to go in and have to alter the actual PDT itself. If you're doing anything else other than putting script into these two areas, and when I say areas, I'm talking about the overall areas, these six different sections, but the two areas. Do not go in. If you're putting script in somewhere else on this document, on this PS1, don't do that. Pay attention. Go read the document go read the admin document, and you'll see that many things that you think you have to go and do some tricky thing, some tricky developer trick to do is already in there. It's just a simple command or something like that. It'll tell you how to do it. I have found very, very few things that I can't do when installing and uninstalling an application. Everything from the install of the application to warning the users, to creating different icons, to files, to removals. I mean, I literally set up and run complete uninstallations of an application in the as part of an install. So I say if I have a software that's one version, say version 1.1.1, and I want to upgrade the same software to 2.2.2, or I want to upgrade a software that does the same thing but by a different vendor. But in order for the new software to work, it has to uninstall the old version. Now, the vendor that you're installing, they don't care about what you have on your machine. Take it off. You've got to take that off. Well, this is where you would do it. You would do it literally in the installation phase. So, one part of the prerequisite for the pre-installation would be to uninstall the initial application, right? To uninstall, then once it's uninstalled, check to make sure it has been uninstalled, and then run your installation phase, right? So there's so many things, and we'll move forward into that as I show you. We're going to start simple here. Like I said, this is your template, though. This is what it should look like, or similar to that. Like I said, you can do other things. It's up to you. But that's pretty much it. And signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.